Hello, this is Daniel from IGN and I'm joined today by Chris.
Hello.
So we're going to be talking about the first debut trailer for The World's End, which is the new movie by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright.
Indeed. Yeah, follow-up to Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, their loose blood and cornetto trilogy.
Right, so here we go, there's the trailer. Let's go right back to the beginning.
Ever had one of those nights?
So the trailer opens with this kind of vintage feel footage. So these are the 5 lads back in their prime in the small village of Newton Haven.
Indeed. And the basic plot is about them reuniting to try and do a pub crawl that they attempted when they were younger but never finished.
Okay, so you and I are analysing this trailer because of our unique experience with pub crawls.
Indeed.
And not so much the cinema of Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright.
There's nothing more British than a pub crawl.
So here is the 5 lads, kind of bit of underage drinking. The guy in the middle is Simon Pegg's character, Gary.
Yep, Gary
And
King.
I assume to his immediate left is Nick Frost's character.
Yep, that would be correct.
Our goal that night was simple. 12 pubs, 12...
Shall we go through the 12 pubs?
Indeed.
So very quickly he goes through the 12 pubs that comprise this legendary pub crawl. So the first post, presumably the first pub they're going to go to this evening.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm thinking when I saw all these pubs being mentioned is Shaun of the Dead. Because Shaun of the Dead's really clever, because when they first go to the Winchester, they basically give the entire plot of the movie in a few lines, saying, "I'm back for shots at the Winchester." So I'm wondering if all these pub names refer to different sections in the movie. So the first post, we see this actually later in the trailer, this is where the lads begin their epic adventure.
The old familiar. That might be somewhere where they meet an old friend, maybe. I know Rosamund Pike shows up in the film as one of Gary's old flames, so maybe they bump into her there.
That would kind of make sense. That looks quite a nice bruiser. Next up is the famous cock. I'm wondering, later in the trailer, we'll see a scene where they're dancing with lots of girls.
Yeah.
Is this possibly a pulling pub? Is this where you go to get laid?
Potentially, yeah. It looks like it's a school disco a bit later on, doesn't it?
Or maybe things turn slightly smutty in this pub? Who knows? There you go. The cross hands. How many hands are there? 5. There's 5 lads? Is this the point where they kind of bond together? Because it seems at the beginning they've lost touch. Gary's the only one who really wants this night to happen.
Yeah.
Is this where they get bonded? Again, continuing the previous pub.
Yeah, the good companions.
They're getting on better. Nick Frost's character maybe starts drinking a bit more. The trusty servant. That's a weird picture.
That looks a bit like Michael Smiley, though, who's actually in the movie, so...
That looks like a real shithole.
But if you look in the background of that picture, like the people's faces, you can't really see them. And that might have relevance to what we're going to see later in the film, like the threat of the movie.
Also, this looks like an inner city pub. Like
Yeah.
The Old Familiar looks a very rural pub, probably starting near the houses, and they're working their way into town.
Yeah.
Building towards that.
There looks like
epic
there could be
kebab.
trouble in that pub.
Yeah. The 2-headed dog. Well, if things start getting freaky and the aliens appear, well, if we think they are aliens, are we possibly going to see some monsters in addition to these creatures?
Yeah, I'm not so sure they are aliens. We can get to that in a
We'll
bit.
talk about that in a minute. And the mermaid. This possibly could be the pulling pub.
Yeah, or Lady Trouble in there.
It looks a bit like a meat market. The beehive. See, when I saw the beehive, I wondered if all these creatures, we don't know what they are yet, will they have a queen of sorts? Is this where you're possibly facing off against the big bad? The king's head? Is that Charles II? Will it involve a decapitation of some sort?
He looks a little bit like Simon Pegg.
That does look a lot like Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg probably doesn't get decapitated.
No.
Maybe. The hole in the wall? That just looks really sinister.
Yeah.
I don't know if I get a pint through a glory hole. But I've been to many hole-in-the-walls in the past, but not that sort. And
finally, The World's End.
The World's End, very famous pub. There's a pub called that in Camden, isn't there, Chris?
Yeah. And I've actually been to The World's End. When I visited the set, I was in The World's End. But I'm not allowed to talk about what I saw in the pub, annoyingly.
So a lot of the movies obviously playing on that really good pun of The World's End being a traditional British pub name, but also the apocalyptic themes of the movie.
Yeah.
So let's just play on a bit more.
But that night, we never made it.
So I wonder what happened that night, because it looks like the Nick Frost character is very upset in this particular scene.
So it seems like they got halfway around. It looks like me on the Otley Run on the right-hand side there, just like chest exposed. I wonder if it's something to do with what happens later in the movie.
Yeah.
Did they encounter these monsters the first time round? Is that what prevented them? Have they repressed that memory?
Yeah, and I've gotten the impression that Simon Pegg's character never has really grown up. He's kind of stuck in childhood. So I wonder if what he saw there in this scene is something that really affected him.
I think they echo that quite nicely in this trailer, because this, you know, Edgar Wright likes match cuts, he likes fancy editing. There's almost in this trailer the match cut of him in that clothing, and then he appears in Nick Frost's office wearing pretty much similar sort of gear.
Goth chic.
Goth chic. So here's Nick Frost's character.
I saw the boys the other day. We're going to go back to Newton Haven. Why? 5 guys, 12 pub.
So you can already see a bit of a switch up to what's happened in Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, where Simon Pegg's character has always been kind of the smart together one,
Yep.
and Nick's characters have always been kind of dumb losers, lovable sort of oafs. Whereas this one, the roles have been reversed, it looks like, where Nick's the together guy and Simon's the guy that hasn't really sort of grown up.
Yeah, I think it's interesting they're shaking up that dynamic. And here we see the town, we see Newton Haven, which kind of echoes what we said about the way that they're going to go through the pubs, working their way through the town, back to the World's End, which seems to be on the edge of the town.
Pubs 50 pints.
60 pints.
Oh, steady on you, Alky. This is our
And Simon's in a Sisters of Mercy t-shirt there, and I believe he used to be a big fan of them from what he said to be on set.
It's a nice little reference.
Yeah.
I've heard that this is the opening shot of the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's a nicely framed shot, and
Yeah.
look at that glorious beverage.
Finish what we started.
So this is the next one of our 5 lads that are going on this epic bar crawl. Martin Freeman, of course, who's found great fame as Bilbo Baggins now. He looks a bit like a yuppie.
And he appears in Hot Fuzz. Is he in Shaun of the Dead as well?
I think he's a brief cameo when they're going through
Yeah.
the back gardens. They meet another set of survivors, and he's just one of those.
And any actor that has appeared in both Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz will pop up in this one.
Right,
They've,
okay.
they've already said.
We are going to do the Golden Mile, and this time...
So briefly we see the brilliant Paddy Considine, and his character is an architect, so he's recruiting from a building site. I imagine the first half of the movie will follow that kind of very traditional narrative device of assembling the team, like Seven Samurai or Magnificent Seven, where you go around collecting each of the main characters before heading back for the bar crawl.
Yeah.
This time,
We are going to see it through to the bitter end.
Now, who's this chap?
This is Eddie Marsan, who is the 5th guy on their pub crawl, and he looks like a car salesman, I would say, in this from this
Yeah,
shot.
again, quite straight-laced, not really up for a big epic pub crawl.
Yeah.
And it's the first time he's appeared in one of the 3-colour ice cream trilogy.
Or lager end.
Good evening, Raymondo.
So if we rewind here, you can see the rest of the guys not really into that. Martin Freeman's still got his Bluetooth earpiece in, so definitely not up for a night of drinking.
Raymondo, the product
Fine selection of British ales and crap cider.
of your son's return. What do you recommend? Beer. One tap water.
Oh.
So again, continuing what you were saying about playing against time, Nick Frost has always been kind of layabout, bit of a lad,
Yeah.
and here he's teetotal.
Teetotal, straight-laced.
What? What the hell is this? Why are we...
So this is our first glimpse of Newton Haven town. It's got a nice bit of bunting, but it looks a pretty drab, nondescript British market town.
But there's something awry, isn't there, from the music and the way people are looking at them. There's just something a bit off.
There's something a little bit Village of the Damned or Midwich Cuckoos, I think.
Children of the Corn, Stepford Wives.
All those sort of things. These people seem possessed in some way.
Why are we even here?
We are here to get annihilated.
You come back.
I think it echoes that sense of when you go home at Christmas, if you've moved away from home and you go back and you feel there's a sense of distance, that you don't belong to the town anymore because you were the one that left. And obviously they're amping this up and refracting it through a genre movie where this is a perfect analogy for that.
Yeah.
So who's this character?
So this is Rosamund Pike, who I think Simon might have had relations with back in the day.
Not looking her best right there.
Back and everything's sort of weird.
I suggest you get on your way.
Now, this is one of my favourite British actors. This is Reece Shearsmith from League of Gentlemen and Psychoville, who's really good at playing angry people.
Yes.
Like, he's really good at conveying, like, simmering rage and pettiness.
Yeah.
He's appeared in Shaun of the Dead briefly, in that scene we've already mentioned,
Yeah.
but he's also in Spaced.
Yes.
So there's a lot of space people in this trailer as well.
And behind Reece Shearsmith, that's Nicholas Burns, better known as Nathan Barley.
So we're not really sure their roles, but it seems like they're kind of quite prominent townspeople.
This is changed. It's the town.
Now, it's all just kicked off right there.
Yeah.
So, regular night in the pub, and then this strange blue light starts emitting from everyone's mouths and eyeballs.
Yeah.
Can you shed any more light on this, Chris? Or
I
speculate?
can't. I believe they're called blanks. This is what the guys start calling them, these people with
Okay.
the blue lights. I don't know. This is pure speculation on my part, but I think they might be robots of some kind.
Right, okay, so there might be a slight bluff going on. Because I
Yes.
think this trailer implies there are aliens of some
And there
sort.
could well be aliens. What do you think?
I think they're aliens purely because of something we're going to see later on in the trailer. Now, this is very strongly reminiscent of Shaun of the Dead, I think,
Indeed.
having a good old-fashioned punch-up in a pub. So this is Nick Frost, who was not drinking at the beginning of the night. Now his face is covered in biro. Is that a callback to Shaun of the Dead and you've got a bit of red on you?
Yeah.
Or is it possibly alien blood?
Or some kind of possession occurring?
But the cardigan is fully open, so, you know, he definitely means business, and he's wielding a nice pair of stools.
Stools.
We are gonna get
School disco?
Again, I think this echoes quite nicely something like Stepford Wives.
Yeah. These are sirens of some sort, they look like, don't they?
So it seems a lot of the action is taken again in quite mundane places like the back of pubs and pub car parks. You know, you've got a chase scene through a British market town, and here you've got a car chase in a British car park.
And there's another cameo then from Spaced, Mark Heap, behind the bar.
This is a fight sequence that's taking place in a beer garden, which actually seems a great venue for a fight.
Rosamund Pike getting a beat down.
It's actually a traditional British hotspot for fighting in summer. It's kind of the British equivalent of a gladiatorial arena.
So the guys are getting attacked by a woman in that sequence, aren't they?
Yeah, and if we go back there, that's actually a pretty sizable special effect for what is a quaint movie. Do we think that's possibly at the end of the movie itself?
I think it might be, and I think they've released a poster this week that uses that explosion as well.
So that seems kind of like a final reel sort of thing where you're like running away from the big explosion. That's a great bit of punch-up and a great bit of physical comedy by Simon Pegg, like the double punch and the spit. You see Paddy Considine fight in the background.
He's got some kung fu going on in the background. I
Yeah,
think.
and they said that each of the 5 main characters, again, somewhere similar to the Magnificent Seven, each character will have their own unique fighting style that will reflect their character traits, which is actually quite interesting. And it won't be, don't expect The Matrix, but expect British sensibility. Now, this is why I think it's possibly aliens. This is very Jules Verne, I mean H.G. Wells. This reminds me of War of the Worlds and the tripods. What do you think that could be?
Some kind of. I'm still thinking some kind of robot.
Robot.
Yeah.
Could be alien robots, Chris.
Could be alien robots. In which case, we're both correct.
Yeah, everyone wins. Now, I have no idea where this scene is. Is this inside a spaceship? It kind of looks like the TARDIS even. But I thought it also could be a nightclub. They could go to one of the nightclub bars. The Mermaid looks like it's like an inner city pub come sort of nightclub.
And Simon's giving everyone their single finger salute.
As you do, that's what I do to alien robots. Now, this is potentially quite spoilerific, I think, this clip. I think that's the world's end. And it's utterly destroyed. And the position of the car almost looks like it's been destroyed before they get there.
Right.
Because it seems like they're driving towards it, whereas in the other scene, and then they're, you know, if we go back a few scenes, it looks like they're reversing and running away from it.
Which would mean they don't get to finish their pub crawl if the pub's destroyed before they get there.
But if we go back to it, what I would say, I'm wondering if they are aliens, could the world's end beneath it, could there be a ship maybe? And that's what's been destroyed? Is this not something blowing up? Is this something taking off? And here we go, we've got some inner city youths, Chris, pursuing Simon Pegg, and they're emerging from in between recycling bins. But that's kind of a weird little symbol, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not what you get on a normal recycling bin, so I wonder if that's got some kind of meaning.
Maybe it's an identifier of this alien race, perhaps, like an emblem or a sigil.
Or we might just be reading too much into that.
Yeah, maybe we don't recycle frequently enough. Now, this is a great callback to fence jokes that have appeared in both
movies.
So in Shaun of the Dead, Sean effortlessly uses a trumpet to spring himself over a fence, and then in Hot Fuzz, Danny Butterworth falls into a fence.
Yeah. So I wonder how many jokes there are going to be like that are callbacks to the last 2 movies.
Yeah, well, it seemed this is the culmination of this trilogy, and there's a sense of nostalgia because they've got everybody back who's ever appeared in one of those movies, like one of the main characters, to have at least some kind of part in this movie. My only concern is whether they are too faithful and they have too many things to tick off instead of letting this film be its own film, which I think Hot Fuzz was. It had its own character.
Oh no. The world's end. What do we do? Let's finish our drinks.
So that was our Rewind Theatre for The World's End, which comes out in the UK on July 19th. So for all your World's End needs, keep it locked on IGN.